On today's episode of The Glue Guys, we're going to try to unpack the deeply packed, vacuum-sealed packaging that is this James Harden, Brooklyn Nets, 76ers saga. Brian and I will dump out our feelings about what we actually want to happen before the trade deadline or possibly this offseason. I have a bunch of fake trades, which I'm excited to share. And how about this exciting coronavirus update?
Oh, fun. And some narrative fiction, Mike.
Welcome back to The Glue Guys. This is Mike Harrisale O'Brien. Check us out on Twitter at BK Glue Guys. Netsdaily.com, The Athletic. Get yourself behind the paywall at theathletic.com/glue guys, a subsidiary of the New York Times. Brad!
Michael.
The Nets are a debacle.
Yeah, we're a real drama machine, to say the least, Mike. I was a little AFK this weekend. Almost, I needed a mental break. I was like Harden. I needed a mental break. He happened to be playing basketball games, and I was in a cabin in the woods. But I felt very connected to him in those moments.
He might as well have been in a cabin.
I felt like he was there with me. Yeah.
The reports are that he's been with the team, but he's been rehabbing in the back, like he's not sitting courtside.
Yeah.
Because his hamstring is so damaged at this point that he's needed multiple games to rest it, even though he's played in multiple games. What a sticky, messy situation.
It's a cold war, Mike, out there. Like who's telling what? Everyone's feeding the media with all kinds of different information. It's hard to know how to sift, but that's why we're here on the Glue Guys, to sift through it all for you, Mike. That's what we offer.
Just to give everyone a warning, we are recording this at 1:34 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on February 7th, and
truly
there's
the witching
very
hour.
Good chance.
Yeah, it's a bad. Yeah.
I joked today. It's Steve Nash's birthday today. Happy birthday, Steve.
Oh.
It feels very apropos that if the Nets were to trade James Harden on Steve Nash's birthday, and he has to be trotted out on his birthday to explain exactly what the hell's been happening. Did you see, before we get into like the meat of the newest report with Adrian Wojnarowski and Ramona Shelburne, did you see what Steve Nash had to say yesterday before the Nuggets game when they asked him directly about whether James Harden would be traded?
I think I did, but why don't you say it so I know?
They asked him and he said, no, James is going to be here. He will be with this team. He wants to be here long term. I talked to James Harden and he wants to be here long term and he's just focused on winning. Steve Nash, you're a delightful human being. You dance on TikTok with your daughters. I appreciate a dad who's willing to demean himself for his kids. I do it every day. But I don't believe a single word that you're saying right now.
Oh, wow.
Because there is such a massive amount of smoke surrounding James Harden, where he wants to be in the future. It seems very easy that if James Harden himself wanted to clear up exactly how he feels, like if James Harden truly was like, I want to be in Brooklyn. I don't care about these reports from Shams Charania or Adrian Wojnarowski or anyone else. I'm going to come out and say, I want to be in Brooklyn. He has the ability to do so. He's a pretty big megaphone. Social media. He could tell the Nets, hey, I want to have a press conference and tell everyone I want to be here long term. But we haven't heard James Harden say that. And this gets to the root of everything that I want to discuss today, Brian. I officially am done.
Oh my gosh.
With all the drama.
And you think James Harden is the source of the drama? Are we good? Wait, where's the manufactured tension drop? Because this, I can tell we're
oh my god, that's gonna take me like 15 seconds to pull up because it's deep within the archives of my Apple computer.
Hey Mike, I like your fit today. I have not known. Is that a new shirt?
Manufactured. You like my fit?
Yeah, I like your fit.
It
looks like a overalls almost. It's like you could have like a name tag thing. I like it. And that's not a joke because those are in the overalls.
The overalls are back in.
They're back in. So says
I like the look that the overalls and no underwear, no undershirt, just commando.
You, man, you're serving
washing
me,
commanders in the overalls.
You're serving me mechanic chic right now, and I love it. Anyways, what were we talking about? We were talking about.
I want one of those mechanical pencils that go, like the really hard ones that go right here.
I do.
And I'll have one in my ear. And a pack of Camel Lights. That's what I want in my pocket. Perfect. This is for the YouTube audience. So the big news item was the Woj Ramona Shelburne piece that came out today, which we'll talk about in a sec. But the tone of it was, hey, James Harden's going to be here. Like James Harden, the Nets have had literally one conversation, and James Harden's going to be in Brooklyn. Like the Nets and 76ers. Like there's no trade that is going to happen. I was disappointed because at this point, I'm quite sick of the James Harden experience. And I know it may change. I know this is recency bias. And I understand the last data point that I had of him playing basketball was the horrific Sacramento Kings game where the Nets had Kyrie Irving and James Harden. And James Harden was such a detriment on the floor that they lost in an embarrassing fashion to the Kings. So that's my last data point, my last perfect memory of James Harden. And I can't Eternal the Spotless Mind. What's that movie? Sunshine.
The Eternal Mind. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Jim Carrey. I can't erase it from my brain. Okay. It's in my brain. Okay. And then all these reports keep coming out. And I gotta tell you, I'm thinking of what I remember about Ben Simmons. And maybe I erased that playoff series from my mind where he refused to shoot a layup. But Ben Simmons on the Brooklyn Nets would be quite intriguing to me. And I feel like Harden is a declining asset in that in 2 years, the team may regret having James Harden on their roster and Ben Simmons may be somewhere else. And people would all remember, oh my God, Ben Simmons, he is good at basketball. It's just an emotional thing. Maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment, Bri.
I think
I'm sick of this.
Beyond that, you've been bamboozled, Mike. Full blown. You've been bamboozled, and there's a couple of different players at working in coordination with one another to bamboozle you. So I don't begrudge you because that's what they're trying to do. What you've done here is like you've got like hair loss, right? You're like all my hair's falling out. Like I gotta get the Rogaine going. I gotta get I'm trying to treat the hair loss. Meanwhile, you're doing chemotherapy, because you're doing serious radiation because you've got cancer, Mike. And you're not trying to treat hair loss. You're trying to treat his cancer. And the real thing that's happened here.
Okay, I'm going to let you say all this. I have no clue where you're going with this. But I'm listening.
I'm saying you're treating a symptom here. James Harden is a pretty easy person to get not excited about basketball if given the right circumstances. And he's a pretty easy person to get excited about it, I think. I've seen him be excited and not excited. I think the Kyrie Irving not playing and all of the drama that comes from it, all the lack of seriousness on display here, leads to a not activated, not fully realized, not fully bought in James Harden. I think I could relate to myself in this situation. If I'm looking across the aisle, I'm supposed to come to a super team. I think Alex Schiffer talked about this. And I'm now, playing 45 minutes a night with Patty Mills on my wing. I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated. I'm annoyed. It's January. It is cold. My taxes are insanely high. And I'm pissed. So for me, James Harden is just a symptom. His lack of interest in basketball right now is like I was saying, is this 1,000th regular season game in January. He's bored of it, and he's like, we've only played 16 games together. We're supposed to be getting this crazy super team Megatron together, and we've done anything but. We're all off in our different worlds, and so I said maybe like a month ago, if I'm James Harden, I lean into the drama. And give everyone else a taste of the drama. That's what I would do as a way to, incite some level of buy-in from the other participants in this super team thing. Kyrie is immovable, apparently. That's just not going to happen. I don't know. I think everyone has a reason to bluff in this situation. I think even down to James Harden, everyone has a reason to bluff. Morey has a reason to bluff. Marks has a reason to bluff on Morey. He's got multiple reasons. I mean, like the idea that he wants to even these even downstream effects, like stringing along Ben Simmons past the trade deadline is like it's just a fun idea anyways. But anyways, there's a whole lot of reasons for why I don't think that this is that the smoke is as it seems. I'm falling just marginally on the side that this is more smoke than fire, just marginally. But that's how having assessed the situation a little bit, and I think we're going to get into this Ramona Shelburne Woj thing because that's the most recent reporting, and it does shed some very interesting light on the situation. I do think that there's just it's just Harden taking the moment to be like, I too am a person with interests, and I'm not going to be some weird full bought in, the only guy who's bought in on this thing. Well, I mean, Kevin Durant's definitely bought in, but he's just not playing right now, and it's easy to forget about him, I guess, in the short term.
First off, how dare you son of a bitch. Don't you dare use a hair loss.
I knew that was going to trigger.
Don't you dare use hair loss as an analogy for any.
The time for me to start talking was already like it was coming upon me, and I hadn't thought of anything else. And I was like, he's going to pick up on this, and he's going to think it's about him. But that was
hair loss is exclusively my corner. Okay. I have written stories about the greatness of bald basketball players in the past.
Mike,
comment
you
on
have
hair
a
loss
full head of hair, and you have like hair dysmorphia. You are totally like fine in the hair loss. Nobody knows what you're talking about. This goes back into your fake obesity thing too. Like nobody's.
Well, I am fat, but I in fact I have come to grips with like my hair is okay. Okay, it's fine.
What do you mean it's fine? It's pretty good for your. I mean,
yeah,
it's normal.
Yeah, as I see more and more of my fellow 2010 graduating class of Syracuse, as I see them on Facebook and Instagram, they have less and less hair. I'm like, okay, I'm now feeling somewhat comfortable. But how dare you?
Sure.
Hair is you could talk about hips and elbows and knees all you want.
We're in a state of manufactured tension, and I went for the jugular. That's what I did.
And let's get into the Ramona Shelburne Woj report. Okay, and here's the top line, and this is really going to be a delight. What's about to happen? So the beginning of it is outlines so specifically the history of conversation that Sean Marks and Daryl Morey have had together related to James Harden. And the timeline that they've set up is about a month ago. As they say, it was 4 weeks ago. I don't know what the difference between a month and 4 weeks. But 4 weeks ago, they had a conversation, Daryl Morey and Sean Marks, and it was played out in quotes in this story as if it was scripted down and passed over like a presidential memo between like Donald Trump and Attorney General Jeff Sessions, right? Like it's one of those official, it's like, here's what the people said. Now, what in the story, it was presented as like very plainly, and it was what Morey spoke up on the true intentions of his call. Morey said to him, Sean Marks, what about James? Marks responded, James who? Because the Nets have two Jameses. Morey said James Harden.
Way to shade James Johnson, Morey. Jeez. Yeah. You forgot all about it.
And Marks said flatly no. Now, Brian and I, because we are both thespians, will recreate this moment. And this is Nets Glue Guys. I'm trying to look for a good drop to do. Nets Glue Guys Theater. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Brian will play the role of Daryl Morey.
Okay.
And I will play the role of the New Zealander, Sean Marks.
Are we picking up our phones? Do we have to pick up the phone first?
Oh, yeah. Pick up your phone.
Bring, bring.
Oh, wait. I have a phone.
You have a phone from New Zealand, so what is it?
I don't even know. There's so many buttons here.
Good day.
Phone call.
Day.
Here you go.
Good day. Okay. Hello, Shad. How are things hagging? This is me as Daryl Morey.
Good, mate. How is that scraggly beard coming in? Got any whiz cheese stuck in it yet?
Shad, you always have those ziggers. Hey, I wanted to just run something by you real quick.
Yeah, brother. Anything. What's up?
I had just a fun trade idea. I wanted us to mull over. It is a super cool one, and Twitter is going to love it.
Oh, dude, hit me up. I love your wild ideas. Wait, that's John Lennon. Excuse me. You're the David Lynch of the trade machine. Oh, back to John Lennon. Okay.
What about James?
James who?
James fucking Harden. I added the F-bomb for
nice. It says Mike pauses, then a flat tone. No.
You sure? Because I've been texting with some old friends from Houston. Won't name names. But it feels like James is really unhappy with the inclement cold weather and the high taxes of Brooklyn. He's thinking about moving south.
Listen, Daryl, I like you.
Great Daryl pronunciation.
But if you ever talk to James again, I'm going to rip out your liver through your kidneys.
And then hang up.
See.
Big, you have to like slam the phone down.
And that was Glue Guys Theater.
Mike, we sent it. We really posted some cringe, but I'm happy we did it.
That was just that was for me. That was a for me thing, and I apologize to put you all through that.
When I was growing up, my sister used to make me put on plays, so it was basically I channeled that experience. I'm used to that. Yeah.
What do you make of the fact that conversation, not that exact conversation, but a version of the conversation was in an ESPN story, that it was that direct? And I just want to say this. I think behind the reporting, like even if Daryl Morey fed that to Woj and Ramona and said, hey, this is the conversation I had with Sean Marks would also need to confirm it. Like both sides of that conversation would need to confirm what that conversation was like for it to be stated in quotes within the story.
You start with that Daryl Morey introed that feels like it's got Sean Marks right, because also he sounds like way more badass than he ever normally. No. Why don't you eat shit?
Listen, Daryl, I like you. But New Zealand is just
it's a
little
tough
one
for
me.
Well, Australia is tough. Like the way so many vowels in there.
And the entry point is always, would you like to put another shrimp on the Barbie? That's always the entry point into it. So did you think it was odd?
I did think it was odd that he sounds like such a badass. Sean Marks does in that call. I get it. He's a tough negotiator, but that does not sound like a normal conversation.
Do you think it's true? Do you think it's true that there's only been one conversation between Daryl Morey and Sean Marks regarding a trade package involving James Harden, and the conversation was 4 sentences and a total of 12 words?
It does seem like that's how these things kind of go, right? Like I'd like to think that those are like memes, but people are transacting these players on a very conversational basis, it appears. So I don't know that this is the exact transcription. It sounds like Sean Marks added a few. He watched Rambo or something and then put it up there. But he. But yeah, I mean, like they just feels like they just like feel each other out. They have these informal conversations. Chum it up.
I just, because obviously there's a comparable to Watergate on the phone conversation. Like, how amazing would it be if there was a GM in the NBA who happened to record every single phone call that they had, and then those tapes got leaked? We would hear a whole nother side of the NBA that one, I would listen to those tapes endlessly, because they would be so hilariously bad in terms of the trades that are discussed. Because like, the funny thing is, the way we get these trade negotiation ideas is like Daryl Morey famously calls basically every team and asks for their best player and comes up with some fake trade to be like, would you do this? He does that for every team. And I think we would hear things like, let's say it's Daryl Morey calling up the Lakers and saying, are you sure Anthony Davis wants to be there? And it's like, here, I'll give you Seth Curry for Anthony Davis. Like, I think there's a lot of that bullshit.
Who was
floating around.
the two teams that it was like maybe Miami and Memphis? I can't remember what the trade was that they had the first names mixed up. Well,
Memphis and the Wizards. It was different Dylans or different.
Right.
Yeah.
This says the James
the trade was announced.
The James Johnson
right?
versus James Harden.
The trade was announced through some reporter, and then what if it was James Johnson for Ben Simmons?
What, James? You wanted a James, right?
James Johnson would just show up to the practice facility in Philly. Not like, even if the report was out there and then it was denied, he wouldn't have received the message that it was denied,
right? And
he would just show up to the practice facility and he'd be like, "God damn it! All right," and get back in an Uber and drive up 95 back to Brooklyn. And be kind of bitter about it for the rest of his time.
Sure.
So let's do this. Let's take a quick break.
Okay.
Coming back, I think you and I need to discuss whether you actually want James Harden or I actually want Ben Simmons.
Oh, okay.
And we're back, Brian. So the thing is, I know what you'd prefer to happen in this situation.
Yeah.
You want to keep James Harden. I am at the point where
Well, can I refine this actually just a
Please,
little
we're
bit?
fine. We're fine.
Because it's not just that I want to keep
It's
James
not raw
Harden.
sugar here.
I just think the problem is not James Harden, and that even if you do trade for somebody else, you haven't fixed the underlying cause, and that's the. I mean, it's me throwing some shade at Kyrie. That's the idea. But anyways, that's really my.
Well, tell
even
me
if you bring Ben
no,
Simmons,
dig into that.
Yeah, because like even if you bring Ben Simmons, that's a guy who's definitely he's not like immune to Kyrie Irving's or the whole toxicity of this situation, not by any means. So I think James Harden is he's he's got high EQ. He's responding to the emotional tenor in the team right
Giving
now.
him way too much credit.
And he's trying to incite some change here potentially. That's my conspiracy theory. But I do think that you're not going to solve the problem with this team until you solve. I think if you had better case scenario, Kyrie for that trade package versus Harden.
Dude, I don't know. I talked about this with Mike Scotto when he was on, and I brought up the question, and I can ask you this too. Would you rather have 5 years of Kyrie Irving or 5 years of James Harden? I'd rather have 5 years of Kyrie. James, I have no faith that he's going to turn into, like, he's going to age ultra gracefully. I think I am, if he stays with the team past the trade deadline and comes out and says, I'm 100% committed to winning a championship, let's all focus on that. And then if they do win a championship with everyone healthy, that I think like then they would sign him to a contract. But the last 2 years of his contract, when he's making $60 million a year, that is going to be ugly. The dude has never fully ever been in shape. He is so gifted as a basketball player. He's such like a genius. I mean, he is a basketball genius. You don't get to be the level of basketball that he's played without being a basketball genius on some level. I'd be so worried about it. And with Kyrie, and this kind of gets into the vaccine thing, I'll do this quickly because Dylan, who wants to talk about vaccine talk?
Before we go into the vaccine thing, though, because like there's the Joe Varno. Did you read that thing? Varden, sorry, from a couple days ago. And it seems to point at someone who's more interested in unraveling a career than, moving past this mandate situation and going to be a super engaged teammate at a high level.
No, and I understand. And that's why there's worry overall about the future of the franchise when you have Kevin Durant. Thank God he has signed his extension.
Really thank God for Kevin Durant for signing that thing.
Yeah, a statue. Let's put a statue of this man, because if he didn't do that, this team would unravel so quickly.
And we get to say, like, ultimately, fine, James and Kyrie both bugger off back to where you came from. We don't care. We have Kevin Durant who can then attract whoever else we want.
Yeah, and I do think we haven't heard Kevin Durant really describe why he wanted to sign that extension. I do think part of it was to be a leader in the moment and say, hey, I'm committing to be a Brooklyn Net right now. Because KD, whenever he would have been a free agent, could have gotten a max contract. Like, I don't think it made him a whole bunch of extra money to get that max contract. Maybe I guess he got a super max like Harden's going to do. Doesn't matter. Like, he made a statement. This is in no way like a bet on Kyrie Irving. I just am kind of disgusted that you and I have the foresight of that in a month's time, everything should be fine. And even as I talk about James Harden and wanting to trade him, I do realize that if he stays past the deadline, Kevin Durant comes back, I do think vaccine mandates are going to change because there's a few data points out there that show us that, yes, it's going to change. We've had commitments from public officials in New York, New Jersey, and the president of the United States, all of whom are Democrats, are all saying we're going to turn coronavirus into an everyday way of life. It just is what it is. To quickly say it, the governor of New Jersey came out. I mean, at least there's a story in the New York Times that he's going to come out and say this by the time this pod is posted. New Jersey is dropping the mask mandate for students and teachers in all of New Jersey. Governor Phil Murphy is a Democrat. He's pretty big liberal, or at least he wants to identify himself as that. That in the New York Times story talks about how there's conversations with President Joe Biden, that, again, coronavirus is going to become more of a regular way of life and less of like, you can't keep masking people up, forcing people to be isolated, all that stuff. The governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, in 2 weeks is going to make a decision on whether to extend New York's mask mandate in schools. This is step one of a multi-step process that's going to end in, I believe, New York City dropping their mask mandate for one, but probably their stringent, like, hey, Kyrie Irving, you can't play. Hey, Broadway performer who's unvaccinated, you can't have a career anymore. I'm not talking about the morals of it, and I'm not even talking about the science of it. This is just the politics of this moment. The politics are showing Republicans have always been on one side, which is like no masks. Anyone can do what they want. There could be a kissing booth on every street, and everyone should spread coronavirus to each other. Literally, Republicans have been saying you can spread coronavirus to each other.
They do love kissing booths, Republicans.
Kissing booths are
are
a pretty big thing.
Big thing at the state fair.
Democrats are via the president of the United States, who is someone who actually Eric Adams is kind of like, hey, emulate me. I'm Eric Adams. President, emulate me the way I'm kind of doing things, which is like, this form of like safe society liberalism, which is like backing police, but also like, being nice. There's a shift now where Democrats are now coming out more and more and saying, hey, we have to live our life like we used to before Corona. And we do everything we can. We try to get people vaccinated, but we can no longer live a certain way. There's no resistance anymore to these vaccines. So, well, this is the long-winded way of saying, by the time playoffs come around, Kyrie Irving will be allowed to be a full-time player, unless if there's a spike in COVID cases, a new variant that comes along. I'm 100% confident that that's how it's going to be. No inside information. I'm not talking to Eric Adams's people. I'm not texting with them, though obviously you and I have the power to. We are a subsidiary of the New York Times. I'm just reading the winds. Back to all of this about James Harden. It bothers me that within this cloudiness, this winter of discontent, that we're just getting so many reports of he's not happy. And if it truly just came down to Kyrie's a part-time player and, I'm playing with James Johnson and Bruce Brown, I thought I was playing with Kyrie and Kevin Durant. James Harden's smart enough to know that Kevin Durant's going to come back in a few weeks. And that he should be smart enough to know that Kyrie probably is going to be a full-time player by the time the season, by the time the playoffs rolls around, not because of his choice, but because of rules changing. So I guess what I'm saying is like, I would rather have a player who isn't immediately looking for an escape ramp. Like, it's a little tough right now. Life's not perfect, James.
Yeah.
Just play it out.
You know what I think
Be tough.
We're in the market for is,
tell me.
You know how manufactured tension is, it's really good for us ultimately. It's a real, sometimes we get lackadaisical and we need to whip each other into shape sometimes. And that's sort of a sign of respect, Mike. It's because a professional relationship is the lines of communication are greased to the point where I can levy some criticism, some harsh, unfair, but effective criticisms.
I'm really not ready for that.
No, you're not ready for that. You've never been receptive to that. But I'm saying if Harden and Kyrie and Kevin Durant,
should we tell people how I reacted when? So I did the Mike Scotto thing. If you don't know the flow of production with us, sometimes I'll do the interviews by myself and I'll send Brian the video. Brian posts our YouTube video. Go to or the Glue Guys on YouTube.
Can't miss it.
And I sent Brian the Zoom, and it was simply just a single shot of Mike Scotto. And you were just trying to figure out what I did wrong. And I simply said to you, it is what it is. I'm not doing anything. I will talk to you next week.
I wasn't actually
I couldn't even.
You even like one step further than me. I was just going to say if that was the right thing, not if that you'd already gotten one step further into asking what I had done wrong is very illuminating. But put that aside, because I was just like, hey, do you have any other parts of this? But you're like, no, and fuck off. In so many words, which is fine. We're thick-skinned around here. But But where this is
One
all
of us
headed,
is.
but where this is all headed, is that
I'm like a grape,
I think
freshly picked and ready to be
burst in your
fucking
mouth.
ripped into.
They need a confrontation. I think that they need to like elevate their professional relationship to the point where, hey, we can be a little critical of each other. It doesn't have to be kumbaya all the GD time. Okay, we've got some problems. We need to air them out. And if that problem is Kyrie, you're not playing enough, or Harden, you are sort of having to earn your stripes a little bit. Kyrie played part of a season before you were here, and now it's your turn to take on some home games or whatever, and so on and so forth. Like, have that conversation, have the respect for each other to get into a fight, Mike. That's it's counterintuitive, but this is a very high EQ thing. I don't expect everyone to understand. This is kind of elite tiers of EQ that I'm talking about. Sort of like around where I am.
I just watched The Master recently. So it's very like Scientology next level.
Right.
I've always been like that.
I'm basically like trying to get them to like go from one side of the room to the other and be like wall, like window,
window. That movie's
I love that movie.
Yeah. Dude, Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance in that movie is insane. I mean, it's one of the best I've ever seen. I mean, he just like
really
his ability to.
I love it. He's like, you're a scoundrel. You're a scoundrel.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen
Don't
Phantom
you just
Thread?
Want to drink that alcohol? That
I do.
I
want to sip
whatever
the
the
engine,
the green,
yellow
the
fuel. Have you seen Phantom Thread, Mike?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Do you really?
Phantom Thread is stuck with me.
I fucking love that movie. It might be like it's really up there for me. It's quite up there.
Like the way that Daniel Day-Lewis sews the clothing. It's like it's embedded in my soul.
Right.
It's
a big one. Anyways, so what do you think about that take? That they need to get in a big old like, air it all out kind of fight, and maybe we can get back into shape here.
Well, and the person though that I wanted that conversation is Kevin Durant, and he's not with the team. It's like we need to set up.
Yeah, you got to wait for him.
Yeah, we need to set up a meeting at a restaurant for those three, and Amari Stoudemire can be the representative for the Nets coaching staff, because I don't frankly really want Steve Nash in there, because Steve Nash would try to stop the fight from happening.
Exactly. No, that's exactly.
You actually need.
He's a little too SoCal for this job right now. We need some East Coast energy.
A little too Canadian.
Frankly. The combination of SoCal and Canadian. It's way too peaceful.
No, we need. There kind of maybe needs some blood on the table. There needs to be a fight. There needs to be some.
We just need someone from
Boston thrown at each other.
We need like an Italian guy, someone from Boston, maybe. We need,
Oh my God! You know what? Andy Cohen needs to moderate.
Great.
It needs to be a reunion special for the Nets. Everyone needs to be there. They all need to be dressed up, drinking margaritas and yelling at each other, and then I think everything will be fine. After that point,
good.
It's just a dark time, because we're sitting here again. The last game we saw was the Kings game. We have all these reports. We have nothing truly from James Harden that feels like a confirmation that he wants to be here. This team is a very tenuous place right now because of where they are, the amount of injuries they have. We have this Joe Harris news that he has still many, many loose bodies floating around in his ankle.
A lazy river. I saw you calling foul on that on Twitter, and actually, people were coming to support these hot takes.
So part of this is one of my multi-part reasons. Yeah. So Mark Bartlestein came out. Mark Bartlestein is the super agent who represents Joe Harris. Mark Bartlestein will put his name to reports. He's not just simply a guy who always hides behind sources say, though, of course, he's someone who is a sources say type agent. But he will, in fact, put his name to it and say, he came out and told Brian Lewis and maybe a few other people that Joe's recovery timeline, we will know more information a week or two, which puts him directly past the trade deadline, which is very sketchy to me. And to me, it leads to the fact that the Nets are maybe thinking about moving Joe Harris, particularly if they get Seth Curry in a trade. Because if they get Seth Curry in a Simmons-Harden trade, then they have the ability to flip Joe Harris to a team that would want Joe Harris into the future, and the Nets maybe have less confidence of Joe Harris's recovery. And I think Joe Harris told his agent, Mark Bartlestein, I'd really rather stay in Brooklyn. And the way to do that is to warn off other teams to say, Joe may not come back this year.
These bodies are falling out of my ankle as we speak. Stay away.
Yeah. Now, here's why, if I saw, after we posted this pod, that Ben Simmons has been moved for James Harden, why I would be excited for it. I don't know what Ben Simmons is like right now, but I talked about the Kyrie Irving, James Harden next 5 years, who would you rather have? For the next 5 years, I'd rather have Ben Simmons than any of those two guys. Kyrie Irving is not going to be traded for various reasons, which I'm not completely clear on. Like, why don't they just trade him? But they're not trading him. Ben Simmons, the more and more it's just been stewing in my brain, God, that feels like a good fit. If it's Kyrie, KD, and Ben Simmons, he becomes this super small ball five. He's not even that small. He's just super in terms of his excellence. Center. Everyone compares him to a Draymond Green role. I don't know if that's entirely accurate. Draymond is such a unique player overall, but so is Ben Simmons. Their defense improves. Ben Simmons slots into a role that actually more fits him, which is the third player.
He's also very diminutive already, like as a personality. Like, so Kyrie and Harden, I get the sense that there's like, even though they're very cordial or whatever, you know,
there's a lot of hugging.
I go back to the Kyrie being like, hey Harden, you're the point guard. All right, you're the point guard. Yeah, go be the point guard.
That wasn't the tone.
Yeah. All right, go be the point guard. That was sort of.
And I've said this before, but the Nets don't make a Harden trade unless if these two things are true. I think both of them have to be true. That they know that Ben Simmons is good to go, that his mental health coaching has really helped his mental state. I don't even say that like tongue in cheek. I mean that. And that they know that like they could get him back into the court within 2 weeks of the trade, right? Like small ramp up period like they did for Kyrie, and then Ben Simmons is playing basketball. And the other thing has to be true, which is that the situation with James Harden is so bad that they can't last for the rest of the season with him, that they must trade him right now. I think if they think they can handle the Harden situation, and let's say they're less confident in Ben Simmons, it doesn't happen. Now I have some fake trades for you, Brian.
Lay them on me.
Couple of easy ones. Everyone has said this one, so I'll start here, and then it goes kind of crazier and crazier. Harden for Simmons and some Philly role player. You need some additional salary to make Harden for Simmons work. My rankings of role players, I want to see if you agree with this. Mm-hmm. Maxey, Curry, Thibault, Danny Green.
Is that all of them that are on the table? That's the only people.
I guess Korkmaz could be in there.
Frickin' Korkmaz. I do like his name.
I'd still rather have those four than Corky on this team.
People, I think the only place where you would maybe have some controversy is the Curry, Thibault situation.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I mean, I think I agree with this, but I think some people are very high on Thibault.
Yeah. So I love the idea of Thibault. I love the idea that he's one of the best defensive wings in the NBA, and that of course has tremendous value on the Nets. I would just urge everyone to look at his offensive stats. They're awful.
Yeah, they're not.
And if let's say you don't get Maxey, you don't get Curry, but it's Thibault, which I would be okay with. I would actually want Thibault and Danny Green in that circumstance. Then you're still trotting out, like you're putting him in lineups with James Johnson and Bruce Brown or people like that. Like he could almost never be in a lineup with a bench unit. He would have to be with the Kyrie, Joe Harris, KD, LaMarcus Aldridge lineup, because he's so bad at shooting that if you put two non-shooters on the floor, you're back to the same problem you have right now.
Well, can I also say, too, people like all last year and, forever, I guess, is just a sort of a trope in basketball watching is like, who plays defense? They're not a good defensive team. And coming from a team with, like, the world's best offense ever versus, like, having a cool defensive team would be fun. It's like, it's not as fun as having an awesome offensive team. Having an awesome offensive team kicks ass. It's super fun to watch.
And then there's like this element of like diminishing your offense to raise your defense, but then neither of them are elite. Mm-hmm. Like ultimately, what the Nets are, unless if they do get like Simmons, Thibault, and another really good defensive 3-and-D wing, not Curry, because Curry's not really that good on defense, and either is Maxey. Danny Green is okay, but he's diminished as an offensive player. Like if you're like the 5th best offense and the 10th best defense, like that's of course that's good. I would rather be the best offense in the NBA and like the 15th best defense.
I think,
right? Like I'd rather be elite.
God, the way that I really think about this, just looking at this, is like, I mean, if Maxey turns out to be like Lou Williams, that's like, that kicks ass.
I think he's already better than Lou.
Pretty much like a late career Lou Williams in his first year or whatever. So you're probably right, but like just thinking about this, like, dude, Harden when he's good is so much better than everything involving every part of this. Like, when I really look at it on paper, it's like that's not as fun as I want it to be. It's just not. Not for James Harden.
So here's some quick wild trades.
Okay.
Here is Harden, Bruce Brown, Javon Carter for Simmons, Danny Green, and Seth Curry. So this is an admission. So I think everyone agrees that Maxey's untouchable for the most part. Some people think like Maxey's definitely going to be in the trade. Daryl Morey really wants to keep Maxey. This is a circumstance where the Nets say, okay, if you guys would ever want James Harden, I said someone said this on Twitter, and I agree with them. Let's say this goes into the offseason. James Harden wants to sign with the 76ers. Well, the 76ers would have to trade Simmons plus other stuff to sign Harden as a free agent. So the Nets can simply say to Daryl Morey, if you think you're going to get Harden in the offseason, you're going to have to trade Danny Green and Seth Curry anyways to clear space, plus Simmons, in a sign and trade with us. So let's do that deal now, because regardless, you're going to have to get rid of Danny Green and Seth Curry, or Danny Green and Tobias Harris, or whatever. So give us Danny Green, Seth Curry, and Ben Simmons. We'll give you Harden and Bruce Brown and Javon Carter. You get some more players. Ease in transition. Actually saves the Nets a little bit of money. And then the Nets get 2 shooters to go along with Simmons and blah, blah, blah. Here's my 2 wild ones. This is fun. This is just for fun. Everyone can get emotional and angry, but this is what I like to do. This is called the wild reboot trade. Okay? The Nets get Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, and Maxey, plus 2 open roster spots, because they trade James Harden, Joe Harris, Millsap, Carter, and Bruce Brown. So
that's the whole. That's really going whole cart.
That's whole cart. And the thing about it is, so everyone's like, oh, nobody wants Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is a very good player. He's not worth nearly the amount of money that he's making. But we know that the 76ers want to get rid of Tobias Harris's contract, and they view him as a negative, even if they say they don't, by reporting out there, you can get Ben Simmons if you attach Tobias Harris. By the way, this deal works out financially. The thing I like about it is, by including Tobias Harris's contract, because it's negative value, the Nets will then be able to get Maxey, because they can go to the 76ers and say, you get Joe Harris, you get James Harden, and who knows what's happened with Joe Harris again, and we will take the bad contract that is Tobias Harris. It gives the 76ers more flexibility down the road. And for the Nets, here's the rotation, just the rotation, okay? Kyrie, Maxey, Patty Mills, KD, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Claxton Aldridge, Kessler Edwards. They call up JJ Redick. They say, JJ, take those Joe Harris minutes. Come and win a championship with us. That's a much better team, I think. It's a much rounder team, and it fills a lot of the needs. A lot more flexibility. Tobias Harris soaks up all of the James Johnson, Blake Griffin minutes. He's a way better player than both of those 2 guys.
My issue is, and this is truly, again, this is only formed by having Tobias Harris fall to me too many years in a row in fantasy, is that the Tobias Harris experience is very, very consistent. And it's somehow he averages 21 points per game despite always scoring 18 points per game. That's that's sort of the shorthand for Tobias Harris. Yeah, go ahead.
The part of the reason why I like it is because we don't know if Joe Harris can't play this year, this team is pretty much screwed. And they need to do something. Now the 76ers could be like, why do we want Joe Harris for a year if we can't get him? But you're like, well, if you want to get rid of get rid of Tobias Harris, you guys take Joe Harris and you guys get him next year and you get your guy, James Harden. Here's the craziest one. Okay. This is called the restocking trade. This is called the Trader Joe's.
Okay.
Nets, Hawks, Sixers 3-way. Nets get Seth Curry, Bogdan Bogdanović, and John Collins. 76ers get Harden and Lou Williams. Lou Williams get to go back to Philly. The Hawks get Ben Simmons, Bruce Brown, and Paul Millsap. Paul Millsap returns to Atlanta.
Huge. That's huge for them.
We know that Atlanta wants to potentially get rid of John Collins and Bogdanovich. They also do want Simmons, but they don't have the piece that the 76ers want that is really going to make the trade happen. The Nets, by doing this, they bet on the fact that Simmons is not going to be really any good this year because he's coming back from his mental health crisis or whatever it is. And they restock. They Trader Joe's their bench. So here's what their team is at this point. This is what I like about it. Kyrie, Curry, Patty Mills, and Bogdanovich as guards. Pretty hefty shooters. KD, Joe Harris, still on the team. Kessler Edwards, James Johnson, Bembry at the wings. John Collins, Claxton, Aldridge, and Blake as your bigs. KD has said he thinks John Collins is the best slip big in the NBA.
Slip big, he said?
Slip big, like screen and roll.
I like it. I haven't seen it said it like that, but it makes sense intuitively, but I just hadn't ever seen it.
Yeah.
Slip big.
So you're giving up a star and you're getting 3 high level role players / starters, 2 of whom are really strong shooters. Bogdanovich is a great shot creator. Curry's a lead shooter. And then you get John Collins. John Collins solves in the same way that Tobias Harris does, solves the Blake Griffin, Paul Millsap, who's the power forward on this team when this team goes small. John Collins can play small ball 5 for you pretty easily in select lineups. That's a lot of production. A starting lineup of Kyrie, Curry, KD, Joe Harris, and John Collins. That is elite offense. That is pure elite off. John Collins is shooting 39% from 3. He doesn't shoot. He shoots about 3 attempts per game, but you are putting out a lineup that is ultra elite shooting. You do that if you don't really love Ben Simmons, but you know that James Harden's done, and you get it. You get 3 elite role players all on contracts you can control. All that could be packaged again into a superstar trade down the line. I like that. I like that perhaps the best. One last thing on Ben Simmons, Brian.
Love it.
I know I've been talking a lot.
No, I'm into it.
The other reason why you make the Ben Simmons trade is the same reason why the Golden State Warriors got D'Angelo Russell. When the Golden State Warriors got D'Angelo Russell, he was an ascending player who they could grab and fit into their salary cap, and that they knew that they could trade in a year. The Nets could get Ben Simmons, play him, see who he is, and then hopefully, let's say he rehabs his value to some level. I think Simmons' value is only going to increase when he returns to the court. Then that gives him the ability to turn Ben Simmons into Damian Lillard, into Bradley Beal down the road. If they think the James Harden situation is irreversible, that it is done for James Harden in Brooklyn,
yeah,
then it allows you to go, okay, James, you can go to Philly. We get Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons part of the Nets for a year, and then they flip Ben Simmons for,
you know what?
Again, whatever.
I'm going to elevate that to that's the only reason you do it. I think that's if you're just trying to get ahead of that, you have some information in your back pocket about what James Harden is thinking, and you need to have a little stash, a little cash stash.
Cash stash.
Yeah. That's what you do. If they do that, that's the only reason they do it. I'm going to say it right here, right now, because it's not better for the basketball that you're playing this year. I don't think so.
Can I ask a prediction?
Please.
James Harden trade. Is it going to happen?
I am on 55% no. That's where I'm currently at. But that can change. It has changed wildly over the last 3 days already. So that's where I presently am. Talk to me in 2 days. It'll be who knows where. But I think I'm 55% no.
Let me ask you this. If the 76ers put on the table and they say, here's Ben Simmons, Curry, and that's it for Harden, do you think that that moves the Nets even closer? Because from what we understand from the Woj, Ramona, Shelburne report, there was no actual trade offer.
No. I think if Sean Marks is the way that I think he is, I think Maxey is the linchpin in this thing.
So if it's Maxey and
I think if it's Maxey, it's on the table at least. I don't think it's on the table with Curry or with just Curry as the addendum.
Yeah, I would think that if there's a conversation of if Daryl Morey's like, I will give you Maxey and Simmons, but that is it. There's no Curry. Curry is not going to be part of this deal. Like, he makes that red line or whatever. He says, Maxey's like the biggest asset that they have, plus Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that moves, even that still moves Sean Marks to be like, the only way that they do the deal is if they know that Harden is like, I want to get out of here and I just want to go play in Philly with Daryl Morey and Tad Brown and all the other people that, all the Houston people that have now taken over Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason why they make the trade. What I do need to know, if no deal happens, I really need a James Harden press conference where he comes out and says, like, I'm here to win a championship. Like, I need him to declaratively say, we're going to work through our shit. I'm here to win a championship. Kevin's going to come back soon. We're going to win. We're going to get that dub, and we're doing it for Brooklyn. Like, we can't have a lingering cloud of discontent.
But we have 3 more days until we find out, Mike. So we're going to have podcasts every day till then, right?
Yeah, I think the next episode we're just going to focus on Cam Thomas.
Beautiful. Where can you find it, Mike, that next episode?
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else you get your podcasts. I was going to make a Joe Rogan joke, but I don't really need to.
Who is it? I mean, who cares? We have to really start as a society deprioritizing Joe Rogan news. I would like it. That's the only real way
I agree, man.
Yeah.
Like I understand that he's very impactful, but like it's
overblown. It's just, who listens to the show? You just only hear about it through these headlines on The Verge. Who cares? I don't care. Stop it. Stop with this. Stop notifying me. Anyways.
Thank you all so much for listening. Super fun episode. Hey, hang on to your butts.
Oh, yeah.
Hang on to your butts. It's going to be a wild trade.
Okay. Thanks everybody. At Netsdaily. The Athletic. Bye.